When I started testing batteries about 4 months ago, it was just going to be a small project to test the new Molicel P50B against a few of its competitors, and that was it. I never planned to do more. Well, in the last 4 months, that little project has turned into a major project, with hundreds of hours spent on testing every popular cell. And doing all those tests, well, it's resulted in a lot of data, a lot of test results, a lot of hours spent, a lot of writing stuff down on different pieces of paper. And as you can see, my stack of papers has kind of gotten large over the last 4 months. In fact, it's gotten so big that it's almost hard for me to keep track of all the data. So I realized that something had to be done to organize this data, to get it a little easier to see, to understand, and for everybody to be able to share and see the results of these tests. So my impetus for starting this spreadsheet came when I got this new tool, a professional AC internal resistance meter. I realized it was needed as part of my testing because I was doing IR tests on my big load machine before, and those were not reliable. I found that those, when I was looking at the DC IR test results, they were varying depending on temperature, but depending on state of charge. And even though I believe that DC is really the better way to look at it, you really need to do AC. So I decided to get a professional AC test meter and test every cell I have on hand, to test it with this professional meter to see what the AC internal resistance was. The other one sort of benefit or plus toward going with the AC test meter is that all the manufacturer specs, all the quoted specs for IR that you see advertised, those are all the AC measurements. So I did that, got them all done, and I was going to release a video saying IR results of all tests. Here's the IR of every cell, and make kind of a database of that. And I did a spreadsheet of those IRs. Well, after doing that spreadsheet of IRs, I realized, you know what? I have this huge amount of data. It's a huge mess right now. And what I need to do is make a spreadsheet with all the results, every test result I've done of every cell, and put that into one place on a nice clean spreadsheet that can be seen, can be understood easily, and the data can be graphed and can be analyzed. So I've spent the past week creating this new spreadsheet. I call it the definitive battery comparison chart. Every cell I have on hand, every popular high power cell on the market that's currently available right now is in this spreadsheet. I'm going to go over quickly here the IR testing that I did the past week and a half, and then go over the spreadsheet. So this is fun working in Ukraine. I got the only stand available in the country, and the connector it came with is too large. It came with this connector, which is for a different tester, so I had to cut these leads, and now I have to fit the correct Finrezi connector onto this stand and make sure it's connected correctly. And another cool thing about working in Ukraine in a crappy rental apartment because terrorists invade your city, can you hear it? This is my impromptu heating system because I'm doing all the IR tests now, and I want to try to get the temperature above 20 degrees Celsius that it was in here. So yeah, fun. So just FYI, here's the pinout. Further modification needed. This is so fun. I specifically asked if the stand that I bought here accommodates 2170s. They said, yeah, of course it does. No, actually, this stand, so if you're buying this one on Ali, be aware, this one that says slide, does not fit 2170s. Not at all. Okay, here is the final setup. Drilled, soldered, cut, modified. By the way, what's this? 10 milliohm? This is one of my Samsung 40Ts. Okay, time for the big, once annual, once every 10 years. I don't ever want to do this again. After 2 hours plus of modifying this thing to work with me, and my special high-tech Ukrainian cheesy rental apartment heating system to raise the ambient temperature. Once annual internal resistance test. So I'm going to run these first of all on the machine that I've been doing all the cells IR testing on. Okay, just to have a basis of comparison. But we now have a professional testing machine with a semi-professional test bench. So hopefully we can have repeatable tests. This 1096 that you're seeing right here, this is one of my Samsung 40Ts that I've tested before, and the cells I've used in packs. So I'm going to test the cells on this thing first, and then on the Finrezi whatever, professional machine. Now note that all the readings I was using before was the upper, that's the DC step down, DC voltage drop measurement. That always gives a higher one than the AC, which is the lower rating here. This one, professional machine, reads the AC, and the specifications that manufacturers always give, they give the AC. For the difference in what is the difference between DC internal resistance and AC, I'll link a good article about it in the link here. But like I said, IR is really a difficult beast to nail down because it depends on ambient temperature, it depends on state of charge, it depends on has the cell just been charged or discharged, or has it been resting for a long time. You can come up with any IR number you want, based on changing these factors. So I'm trying to make it as close as possible for comparison by having a somewhat similar ambient temperature. That's why I had the hairdryer on for an hour and a half, try to raise the temperature because it was like 21 in here before. Hopefully now we got like 23 or 24. And gonna try, very difficult to sit and get, 30, 40 different cells at the exact same state of charge. I'm going to try and get them around 3638. On a couple, I'll do comparisons at different state of charges just so you can see the difference. So first of all, I'm going to do them with a current test that I'm doing, which is the Lishen LR2170LA versus the EVE 40P. So let's work on those. And just to show you, just so you can get an idea of our ambient temperature, unfortunately, on the IR test, on this machine, it doesn't show temperature at the same time. But ambient now is 22.3. That's the warmest I could get it. Now here we go for your exciting viewing pleasure. I know this is exciting stuff. All the Lishens that I tested before from Ukraine source and the EVs I tested before. You need to check those for comparison. These are not prepared. I haven't done voltage, equalizing. Now, for a little fun, let's compare the king. Molicel P50B. This, like I said, hasn't been prepared. I don't know what the state of charge is. This is just how I have it. 410. That's kind of high to be sitting. So P50B at 410. 014005. Interesting, not showing a big difference between that and the EV and the Lishen. Okay, and this is what I think everybody's really curious to see. What does the P50B show on the professional machine? And yeah, it's lower. Definitely. 6.39, let's call it. Okay, my second P50B. I have numbers 3 and 4 coming soon also. Okay, Molicel P50B. This was sourced from Ali, directly from China. State of charge, 341. And these have all been sitting in ambient temp, so they should all be around 23 Celsius. 011004. And drum roll please, P50B number 2 shows 613. So consistent and lower than the others, which is good as expected. In every cell, except for these, this new test of the Lishen LR2170LA and the EV40P, all the other cells have already been through a full discharge test down to 2.5. My point is that they've been through testing already. They've been through at least one abusive discharge cycle lower than you should go. So keep that in mind, that if these were brand new out of the box and I just charge them at 3.8, you'll probably see a better reading. But these have already been through some test cycles, including a very abusive discharge down to 2.5. So actually, as a brand new cell, I'm sure the readings would be a little bit better. And now for an even more interesting point of comparison, if you're a total battery geek, like I guess I am, let's check some tablet cells, see how they perform. So this first one, EVE40PL, this is directly from China, Ali number 1. So we're showing 013, 004. Holy crap, that's a low reading. Yeah, they definitely have lower IR tablets. Wow. Well, that really shows the difference, doesn't it? 3.28, 329. Wow. These, by the way, these are the new ones that I've just received for additional testing against the Ampace JP40. Those are next. So one thing to note, these EVE and the Ampace I'm going to show in a sec have not been through a full discharge down to 2.5. So you need to make that note. So both these EVs I'm showing right now have not had a 2.5 discharge. Okay, 010, 003. Okay, EV40PL LA2, again new, hasn't been fully discharged yet. Yeah, super low reading, 3.24. Let's compare. Okay, this to me is super interesting. So the difference we've got here, these EV40PLs, where did I source them from? The original test. Holy shit, I don't remember. No, NCon, I believe. You gotta have to check the original test. But the point is, this 1, 2, and 3, they have been through deep discharge down to 2.5 and, you know, very hard testing. So it should be very interesting to see the difference on these ones, which have already been 010004. Okay, 40PL already. This one's already been put through the ringer. All the tests down 2.5. So showing 348, 350. Now, keeping on the tablets theme, let's do another interesting one and check these back 45D tablets. Now, I did a full test on these, you can see on the channel. But again, I just tested them with this. So it'll be interesting now that we have this set up to compare with everything else. State of charge 373. And interesting to compare with what I showed previously on the test. Whoa, that's low. 006002. Okay, back 45D, used, already tested. Number 1, 335 and 336. Interesting that this machine was showing kind of a big difference, like this one was significantly better, but this one, which I take this as the real professional result, showing 335. It doesn't seem to make a huge difference on the professional machine, so maybe that's good, because it's more comparable. Oh my god, well, that's a big difference, huh? Okay, 020007. Yeah, I guess it's really a good thing that I got the professional machine, because this one, based on state of charge, is really showing, you know, big variations. However, this one, even though it's lower state of charge, I think is showing, you know, more the true IR, at least the AC IR, so 344. Now, what I've been looking forward to the most on this test, the Ampace JP40s, these are brand new, have not been cycle tested, anything yet, so I wanted to do this before doing those. And then these are the Ampace JP40s I originally tested in the Ampace test, the tablets test. However, they're actually not Ampace, they're the LT22710 labeled cells, but they were sold as the Ampace JP40. So we have, basically these are the same cell, just with a different wrap, same manufacturer, same everything. So the difference we're going to see is LT wrap, and these are used and abused, hard cycle down to 2.5, and these have no cycle. This is actually quite exciting to me because I really like these cells, impressed with them, and I do plan to build over this winter a battery pack with the Ampace JP40s. Okay, what's our state of charge? 390, a little bit high. So 390, we're showing 008003. Look at that. It corresponds. These definitely, in my testing, perform better than any of the other tablets. And look at that IR. And again, these are cells, these two have been used and abused. 50, 60 amp output down to 2.5 volt cycle test. So that is, wow, 272. Holy crap. 006002, still showing nice and low. And yep, that is a low reading. Wow. And again, this is a cell that's been used, tested hard, went down to 2.5, and showing 267. These are brand new from China. Ampace JP40s. Whoa. Brand new from China, Ampace JP40s. Hopefully it'll be the lowest reading, 371. No, they should be the lowest reading of everything, but we'll see. Because these are new. They've not been through any cycle test. They've not been, you know, high load or down to 2.5. I just, out of the box, they were like 3.55. I charged them just a little bit. 009003. And that's interesting. Shows a little higher IR. So like I said, these are brand new JP40, 287. 08003. Okay, and JP40 A2, new, not used, no test yet. Sorry about that being out of focus. 283. Okay, now, this is super interesting to me because, like I said, P45B is kind of the bread and butter cell. It's the best mid-priced high-performance cell in general. That's not a tabless. Just a great cell, especially for the money now. The prices have gone down. I'm using P45Bs in the battery pack, 80 volt. I'm making for my 32 kilowatt Street Beast Surround build. I'm building the pack this winter. Hold on a sec, I'll show you the bike. There she is. So the P45Bs are going in this beauty. Yeah, it's a pretty bike. So I'm really curious about the difference in different batches on P45B and how they compare. Whew, okay, so that's it for now with all the IR testing. I'm sure I have more cells to test, but for now that's, I think, about everything. Here are the results so far. I'm going to make a chart, and I'm going to do this testing is going to be the basis for a separate video. So I'm going to go over and kind of analyze everything, briefly give you my analysis and my thoughts on these results. I think the one thing that it really shows, though, is that this tester, no, as good as it is for load, it's not really reliable for IR measurements. That's why I knew I had to get a professional AC IR tester. Even though I agree that the DC, load test, it's more sort of valid for our purposes, for Saran, for E-moto, for PEB, high performance, that you want to look at under load. But the thing is, that test is not really repeatable, because as you saw, it's highly dependent on state of charge, temperature, all that stuff. Whereas even where we had the same cells but different states of charge, this AC meter was giving almost the same results. So as far as for comparison, and also for comparing against what factory specs are, obviously I need to use this AC meter, as my spec, even though DC might actually be the better reading for E-moto and for Saran. Okay, and then here's the Molicels P42As. P45B, sorry, P50 was on the other side. So yeah, I'm going to do a separate video with all these IR tests, and go over the results in detail and make some charts, and maybe organize them by cell, or sort them by cell, or sort them by lowest IR to highest. But basically, I think it's super useful to have a test. These are all the popular cells for E-moto, for Saran, for PEBs. These are all the popular ones that are on the market, the best ones on the market now. So I think to know the IR for everything and kind of compare them, it's useful, because that's a real good test of how the cell's going to perform. So here are the results for the Lishen A grade and B grade. There. And then the EBE40Ps, and again, these are new ones. So these are new testing. Well, I should say new. They're new. They've had the 2330, the constant 55 test. Those tests have been done on all these cells, but they have not had the abusive capacity test down to 2.5. So keep that in mind. These cells have been, briefly tested, but not the full capacity test. So, okay, I'm doing this for science, and so I have the most complete IR list of all the popular cells anywhere in the world. I think it's going to be, I'm going to disassemble this power bank that I made with these P45Bs. These are the ones that I previously used on the test. Now that I have this professional machine, and so we can have a valid comparison, for everything on this AC testing, I want to test the used ones. These all have been through the hard cycle test, so they've been through difficult testing, 40, 50 amps. They've also now had about 5 full charge cycles as a power bank, so these are definitely well used. The other thing I'm going to do while I have these out is go ahead and test them down all to 2.5 too, just so we can have a point of reference, because these were all just tested 2.8. Okay, and lastly, P45B used, U4, 407 volts, 646.7, let's call it 7. That is really impressive. Don't want to go to full white screen here, but just to show again, all these new cells, all the new ones, were 684, 651, 656, 650, and the ones that have been through hell, really used hard, they're all lower, 632, 644, 646. They definitely have not increased significantly from these tests and these cycles. So that's a really cool sign of a high quality cell. These have been through, really hard testing, 40, 50 amps, 60 in some cases, down to 2.8 volts and like 5 full charge cycles now, and still showing, really good internal resistance. So that's really encouraging. Really, I think it means a good quality built cell. Okay, P45B U11 finished. 4220. That seems a little low. That's interesting. It did 4231 when it was new to 2.8. Okay, tested cell U5, finished the capacity 4294. I'm seeing a trend here that these are not showing anywhere near 4500. That's a bummer. I do have one brand new cell on charge. Gonna test it. I hate to kill a brand new cell, but I think it needs to be checked for consistency. So yeah, U5, 4294. So far, none of the used ones are showing anywhere near 4500. Okay, P45B U4 done 2.5, 4318. Still nobody hitting 4500. Okay, P45B new at 2.80, 4245. Okay, P45B brand new. I had it on 0.9 most of the time. I just turned down to 0.8 to reduce voltage drop to try to help it a little bit. But this is brand new, no cycles, never been used, and still nowhere near 4500. So kind of bummed out. 4363. More than kind of bummed out that none of the P45Bs are giving anywhere near 4500 milliamp hours. P45B N1 back on the stand, testing down 2.5. I know it shows 14, but it just got off the charger at 100%. So Anyway, just want to show that I'm starting these from a full charge. 0.8, it's going to run overnight. Okay, P45B N1. I think that still says it. Finished capacity, not good. Well, I mean, these are used, obviously, well used. Not well used. Tested with 5 hard cycles, maybe. N2, starting the test. Just finished charging it. It's on 418. P45B N2. 4251 to 2.5, not good at all, nowhere near 4500. And remember, all these only have 1 full cycle to 2.8, and then like 5 half cycles of testing. So that's not good. And here's my new spreadsheet that I spent many hours on. All the results. Gonna publish it now soon. N3, starting capacity test. No, it was 4.19. P45B N3 just finished. 4312. 4312. Okay, next. Be great if we focused. 50S. I decided to run all the previously tested batteries down to 2.5 just to have for comparison. So running this one overnight down to 2.5 is 0.9 ampere. Okay, 50S down to 2.5 is done. And there we are, 4842. Of course, the cell has been through a few test cycles. Not brand new, but that's where we're at. Okay, so here it is, the spreadsheet. Let's go over it briefly. I'll try to explain what's on there, why I set it up the way I did, and how it's organized. It should be pretty self-explanatory, but I'll just go over it briefly. First of all, of course, it's not totally complete. There is some data missing. I didn't do every possible test on every possible cell, but all the data is there for everything that I've done. I'm going to update it regularly as new data, new tests are done, and as new cells come out. So I'll always put the date of the update. But anyway, what I wanted to do was on the left column here, have every, if you look to the column where it says cell, this is of course every cell that I've tested so far, organize them in alphabetical order. And so there's, like I said, there's every cell. Next to that, the next column I put was notes. So if there's additional information that's needed or relevant about that cell, I put some notes, like where they came from, if the ACIR test was done after the cell was used, after it has a bunch of cycles, or if it was done when the cell was brand new, and any other notes. On a couple of the high amp tests, they were done at lower temperatures, like 21, 22 Celsius, and some were done at higher temperatures, like 27, 28 Celsius. So I try to make a note in there if there was a big temperature difference on some of the tests that were done. So those are in the notes for each cell. Next, we have DCIR. That's the IR reading from my big load meter. The IR readings that I was doing on all my previous testings that I was quoting were the DCIR. And again, like I said, that's why I decided to kind of scrap that and get the professional ACIR meter, because the DC, first of all, it's not repeatable. There's huge variation in it depending on the temp, state of charge, and all that stuff. So it's not really repeatable as a basis for comparison. However, the AC IR meter, it's not subject to those variations like temperature so much, like state of charge and all that. It gives pretty repeatable, consistent results, and for sake of comparing the cells, which is what we really want to do, it's the best way. And plus, like I said, manufacturers use the AC. So that this column, first there's DCIR, that's from the big load machine. IRAC, that's from this new tester. And again, it's great for comparison because I took all the cells and put them on the same machine, the same day, on the same test stand, so the results are very comparable. So that's good. On SOC volts, that's just if I did have a record when I did the AC IR reading, testing, what the state of charge of the cell was, that is state of charge for the IR reading with the AC meter. But that's not, didn't do that on all cells, but where I did, I put it on there. Weight in grams, I used that jewelry scale to get it down to the 100th of a gram. So there's the gram weight for each cell. You can see that for consistency. Next two columns are about capacity. So originally, If you saw my earlier tests, the capacity was, I was measuring it down to 2.8. Like I said, there were good reasons for that. At first, 2.5 is really abusive. Your BMS and your e-bike or Surron or motorcycle or skateboard is never going to let the cells go down to 2.5 volts. And even 2.8 is actually too low and is kind of abusive. 3 is usually the lowest that we run the cells for longevity. But anyway, I decided to run all my capacity tests down to 2.8 initially to not be so abusive on the cells and to be a little more realistic in real life circumstances. But I decided now to go ahead and test many of them down to 2.5. The main reason for that is to check the manufacturer's, claims, check the manufacturer's claims on if their cells are actually meeting the claimed specs. And I'm going to go over, I made some charts here that are really interesting about capacity and other charts too. So we'll go over that here in a minute when I show the graphs that I made. Then after that, we've got the columns for all the different tests. So I kind of do everything in the same order for consistency when I test the cells. Now I do the constant 5560. That's again 10 minutes at 10.4 amps. It's simulating the load that you would have going 55, 60 miles an hour or 90, 100 kilometers an hour on a Surron or E-moto for 10 minutes. So kind of a realistic, if you're taking a highway run and you're going for 10 minutes or 10 miles, let's say, how the battery responds for voltage drop and temp. So that's a constant 5560. And then these 3 columns within there, here is your initial voltage drop. First one, second one, that's 10-minute voltage drop. That's a voltage drop at the end of the test. And then 10-minute delta T. That's the change, the increase in temperature. So all these temperature readings I have where it says delta T, these I've gone ahead and calculated from the starting temperature minus deducted that from the ending temperature to show the change in temperature, which is the most important thing because obviously starting temperature is different every time I do the test. And also this brings up one other important point that I forgot to mention before, which is if you notice on my earlier tests, there's a lot of additional data on those tests and on those sheets that I write out. For this test, for example, I did a 1-minute reading, a 3-minute, a 5-minute, and a 10-minute, and I've got voltage at each one, temperature at each one. So because if I were to write down all that intermediate data and copy it and put it on the spreadsheet for every test, it would take me 3-4 weeks just to do this spreadsheet alone. So I decided to do the ending voltage and the ending temperature delta for each test, not all the intermediate readings. So if you want to see those, I'm going to they're on the previous tests, and I'm going to do photos of all my data sheets so you can see what all the intermediate readings. But I thought for basis of a comparison and just for on this chart, the most relevant is we want to see the initial voltage drop after 5 seconds, which I've already explained why that's valid, why that's important, and then also to see the voltage drop and the temperature increase at the end of the test. So in this case, for constant 5560, we are showing at 10 minutes. That's the end of the test. Okay, I'm trying to go as quick as I can here. Next is mixed load test. So that's usually the second one I run. That I think is a really relevant test for a lot of people, a lot of real life usage. I've never seen this done before I did it, which is 23 amps for 7 seconds, 12 amps for 23 seconds. That 30-second loop is then repeated for 5 minutes, showing heavier load and then lighter load, heavier load and then lighter load. So again, this is a 5-minute test. I do write down all the, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on my sheets, but here I'm just presenting the end result. So we've got 5-minute voltage drop. That's what and again, it should go without saying, but on every test, all these tests, they are charged fully to 420, freshly hot off the charger. If the battery had been sitting for a while and gone down to 416, I pop it back on the charger to get to 420 before the test to try to make it valid. So anyway, 5 minutes is the end of that. So there's the voltage drop at 5 minutes, and then we have the 5-minute delta T. And then we have all the high amp load tests, 23, 30, 35, 40, 40, and 50, and 60. So again, the first column, there's your initial voltage drop. That's the voltage drop after 5 seconds under load. And then in all these, well, the 23, 30, and 35, those ran for 3 minutes, and we have the results here. So 3-minute voltage drop, that's the voltage at the end of 3 minutes. And then the delta T, that's the temperature increase, again, the increase in temperature, not the actual temperature, not 8 degrees Celsius. This is the increase over the starting temperature. And again, with 30 amp load, same thing. Initial voltage drop, ending voltage, and ending temperature increase. Same thing with 35 amp, same thing with 40. Only with 40, I added the intermediate result where I had them of 2 minutes. It's initial voltage drop, then you show the 2-minute results and the 3-minute results. The reason for that is on some of the cells that were getting too hot, the non-tablet cells, like the Lishens and the Samsung 40T, they were getting too hot at 3 minutes, after 2 minutes, so I only ran the 40 amp to 2 minutes. So again, I put here the 2-minute and the 3-minute results. And then for the 50 and 60, of course, if you saw on the Molicel P50B video, I only ran those tests on 2 cells, so the results for the 2 cells that I ran are here. And on the 50 amp, it ran for 2 minutes, so there's the end result at 52 minutes. And then at 60, I only ran it for 1 minute, so I have here the 30-second results and the 1-minute results. So again, sorry, that's a huge long explanation on the spreadsheet, but hopefully, I hope that this becomes kind of a reference guide for a lot of people. I wish, as a hobbyist and enthusiast of batteries, I would have loved to have had this available and this information, available and presented clearly when I started, doing E-moto and Sur-on batteries a year ago, or even, years ago, to have something like this when I started doing my own battery packs. So that's it. Sorry for the long explanation, but now you know it. Now you know everything, why I set it up this way, and I never need to say it again. Okay, and last but not least, I made some really cool and really pretty charts for this data. I have so much data on here that it's just begging to have some cool graphs made. So I sort of brushed up on my Excel graph skills and did these graphs. If anybody watching is a real master at doing Excel charts and graphs and wants to do some other ones, have at it. I'd love to see some more, graphic representation of the data made. And here, let's go over the graphs briefly and kind of explain it. Although I do want to kind of analyze each graph briefly, the results. So here's the first one. This is kind of really interesting one, and really interesting for me to see anyway. It's the IR-AC. So it's with a new AC meter. On the same day, I put on the same stand, on the same machine, same temperature, I put every cell on here and got an AC IR reading. And it's interesting to see them. They're kind of grouped into 4 groups, it looks like here. So if we start at the left, the bottom, that's the lowest the lowest IR AC. I'm going to stop saying AC, just the IR. It's the lowest IR reading of any cell. And that's 2.67 milliohms for one of the Ampace JP40s. That's just ridiculously low internal resistance. You can see here, this first group that's so low, those are all the tablet cells. So obviously they have much lower internal resistance than any of the other cells, and the performance that they have with less voltage drop and less temp increase, that really, shows and corresponds with a lower IR. You see here the 4 Ampace, those are showing the lowest. The EV40PLs then are a little higher, 324, 329. The backs are about the same here, and then EV40PLs that I got recently, about the same, 345, 348. Then the next group, this is starting the tab cells. Obviously the lowest on the tabbed cells is the Molicel P50B. Those perform the best for IR, so around 6.1, 6.3 for the P50B. But notice right here, if you look at P45B U5, that's 632, almost as low, almost the same IR as the P50B. And my testing on the P50B video bore that out, that the P45 had very similar, very, very similar voltage drop and temp increase performance compared to the P50B. There was almost no difference. And even here, if you look at P50B 303104, that's actually equal to or even higher than a couple of the P45Bs. And I tested multiple P45Bs here. You'll see a bunch of them on there because, I think it's a very significant cell and kind of the mainstream, main market high power cell now. Here, if you see P45B new to M611, that's one that I just did now. That's a brand new cell that was unused, and the purpose of doing that test was to see if the IR was going to be higher on a new cell or lower on a new cell. In other words, if my hard testing I did on these used cells, this N3, U11, those are all hard tested cells in my previous testing. I wanted to see if a new cell was going to have less IR, but actually they're about the same, very consistent, which I think is good. Going to the right here, here's another P45B N2 at 6.7, P45B 2M913. Then we sort of jump up to this next group in the 8s and 9s, Lishen LR2170s, LR2170s showing 8.8, 8.5, 2170. Here, if you look over to right further, Molicel P42A is 9.0, so a little higher IR than the Lishen LR2170s. And then the EV40Ps, that was a comparison I did with those cells. Those are a little bit higher than the Lishens too, around 9. Now, interestingly, let's see where the Samsungs end up here. The Samsung 40T was 9.21, and then the 50 or the 40, I'm sorry, I should clarify, 40T3U5, that's a used 40T that had been tested hard. That measured 921, and then all the way to the right, the very highest reading, this was a brand new 40T3 showing 10.93 milliohms. So interesting that the used cell that had been tested hard shows a lower IR. What else? P42, like I said, is 922. 50Ss are showing really high internal resistance in general, 10.6, well, not really high compared to the others, 10.6, 10.6, 10.8. So that corresponds with the fact that they heat up quite a bit and have a lot of voltage drop under load. So anyway, sorry for the long explanation, but hopefully that's my analysis, and hopefully this will be a good resource for IR. Okay, this next one I promise will be shorter. I'll go over it very quickly. Capacity to 2.5 volts. So like I said, I tested initially all the capacities to 2.8 for the reasons I explained, but then I decided to go back and do a lot of them to 2.5 to check, mainly to check how they met their manufacturer specs, if they met them or not. This is very, very interesting to me. So let's go kind of from the bottom, the lowest tested capacity, to 2.5 to the highest. The B grade Lishens. I mentioned that in the Lishen EV40P test that I recently did. Those perform the worst, and those perform very, very badly compared to the other Lishens, because this is a 4,000 milliamp rated cell. So they did way below that, and if you look over to the right a little bit, you'll see the other Lishen 2170s did 3781. I even had one that did 3919, 3920, 3943, down to 2.5 again. So yeah, they did close to, but didn't meet their spec, advertised spec of 4,000. But these Lishen B grades did very low, almost 500 milliamp less capacity. So the Lishens are there at the left. Then you go over toward the middle, EV40P. Like I mentioned in a lot of my testing, and EV40PL, those EVEs, almost all the ones, no, I should say all the ones I've tested have really met their advertised spec for capacity, whereas others have not. EVs have met their spec for capacity, so that's very cool. Ampace JP42 was 4020, JP40A2 4026, JP40A1 4032. So all the Ampaces measured above the advertised spec of 4000, which was super cool. EV40PL also measured 4026 above the advertised spec, so that's very, very cool that the Ampace and the EVs were both above the advertised spec. Now let's look at 4203. This is where things get not looking good for Molicel, and very disappointed about this to find this out. I was, like I said, when I originally did my testing at 2.8 and the P45 and the P50B didn't have anywhere near their advertised capacity, I kind of gave them a break, gave them a pass, because I said I was testing only to 2.8 and, not down to 2.5. Well, here's 2.5. You can see the results. Now, the N1, P45B, U11, and 2, U5, these are all used. I mean, used as far as they've been tested. So they had one full charge cycle, and then they had, one of each of my 6 tests that I just described. So one full and maybe 5, not even half charge cycles. So these 45Bs are around 4290, 4312. Those are all used P45Bs. Now, if you go over to the right, look down in the bottom where it says P45B new to M913, that's a brand new cell, because I wanted to see if the new cell was going to have, better results than these used ones. And look, 4363. So it was a little bit better than the ones that have been tested. It's not even a lot of cycles, like I said, a few cycles. But the new one, still 4363, nowhere near the 4500 advertised capacity. So that's really kind of a bummer to see on the Molicels P45B. So there's P45s. Next to the right, back 45D1 measured 4376. So again, not meeting the 4500 advertised. And now we jump up to the next group, 4773. So again, let's look at the bottom right, Molicel P50B. This is the first one that I got. The third one from the right, and then all the way to the right was the new one that I got most recently. That was tested new. This 303104, this was tested capacity used, after the testing, so a few cycles. The one to the far right, the Molicel 811, that was tested new. No, I'm sorry, I should say it was also capacity tested after a few charge cycles. I didn't want to run them down to 2.5 first and then do all the high amp tests. I thought that might really negatively affect the cell. So all of these, I did the capacity test last. But this A1, it's a brand new cell. I just did the test and then did capacity. So none of the Molicels achieved their advertised capacity, which is a real bummer. Samsung 50S IMR1, that's also a previously tested cell. I don't have a new one here. That measured 4842. So anyway, again, sorry, long, but that's the capacity results to 2.5. Okay, next, this purple one is capacity to 2.8. I'm not going to spend any extra time going over it. Everything I said about 2.5, applies here, except, of course, none of them are meeting their advertised spec because I only ran them, of course, down to 2.8 to be more gentle on the cell. So, but these are my original tests to 2.8, so you can look and compare how they did to 2.5. And the cell has been in storage for 2 years. That is awesome. So it's doing over advertised capacity even after having been stored for 2 years. 4012. Wow. Okay, so this next test, the green chart, this is a constant 5560 test. Again, 10 minutes at 10.4 amps, and pretty self-explanatory. You can see this is the voltage, the ending voltage after 10 minutes. Of course, they all started fully charged, 420. They ran for 10 minutes. So the worst performing is on the left, the lowest voltage. The best performing is on the right. And you can see there's a pretty big spread between the best and the worst, 369. Remember, your usable voltage range is only between 3.0 and 4.2. So the difference between 369 and 352, that's what, maybe like 15%, 18% on your battery charge. So yeah, like I said, pretty self-explanatory. You can look at the results here. The tablets performed the best. The Ampace, the back 45Ds did well, Ampace, and interestingly, on this test, the Molicel P50Bs performed a little bit better than the which are of course tab cells, performed a little bit better than the EV40PL. But part of that is capacity. Remember, the Molicels are advertised 5,000, the EVEs are 4,000. So you're using less percent of the battery's total capacity, and this is a longer running test for 10 minutes. So all other things equal, a higher capacity battery is going to show less voltage drop because you're using a smaller portion of that total charge. So the P50B at 10 minutes actually did better than the tabless EVE 40PLs. Okay, and next here is the temp increase for this constant 55 mile an hour, 90 kilometer an hour test. So this is temp increase after 10 minutes. Again, it's not the actual temp, it's the delta T for the increase over the starting temp. And best is lowest. So on the left, the lowest number is the best. The right, the highest number, is the worst. And what's really interesting on this test, I know you're going to see it right away, is, oh no, this was a different one, sorry. What's interesting on this test is the lowest temp increase on the test was a P50B, not a tablet. So the second best was EV40PL. One thing I think contributed to that one, that first P50B, is I ran the test when the temperature, the ambient temperature, was hotter, and it seems like like they perform when it's a little warmer, like 27, 28, 30 Celsius. You have a little less temp increase and a little less voltage drop. So I think that was run at a warm time during the summer. But in general, the best performance, the lowest temperature increase are the tablets. The EVEs did the second best, Ampace JP40 EVE. So all the tablets there have the lowest temp increase. And then you see getting to, well, the back 45D had 5.1, the P45B did 5.5, one of them, Ampace JP40. So again, you can see here, and then the worst temperature increase all the way on the right there was one of the Lishen LR2170LAs. Actually 2, 3, 4, the 4 highest temp, which is interesting, even more temp increase than the Samsung 40T or the 50S on this test. Okay, next graph, green, is mixed load test. So I've already described the test. It's for 5 minutes. The green here is showing the voltage drop after 5 minutes. So the higher number is the better on the right. The lower number on the left is the worse. And you can, as I said, again, it's pretty self-explanatory. After 5 minutes, the worst performing one was 3.62. Again, well, is the Lishen B grade cells. And I mentioned those had much lower capacity. So the Lishen B grade did the worst. EV40P was also just a little bit above, and the best performing after the end of mixed load were the Ampace JP40s, the top 4 there, the JP40. So again, no big surprise there. The tablets performed the best. Let's see, what was the best performing tab cells? That was P50B, did 371 compared to 377 volts for the best tablets. So that's the mixed load voltage drop. Now the next cell is a mixed load temperature increase. Again, self-explanatory. You can see here on the left is the lowest temperature increase, so that's the best performing, the lowest temperature increase. On the right is the highest, and here is where I was really shocked at how badly the 50S did. If you can see there, and again, this is only a 5-minute test, 50S's went up 13.6, 14.1 degrees Celsius. Compare that to the best performing tablets, which was one of the EV40PLs, at only 3.9 Celsius increase over 5 minutes. So pretty amazing and dramatic difference in temperature increase. Remember, higher temperature, more temperature increase is going to shorten your cycle life, reduce the cycle life of your cells. So yeah, you can see here pretty dramatic difference in temperature increase. Okay, next here, green, is we get to the high amp load test. This is the first one, 23 amp. And what I did for all of these, I organized them, sorted them in 2 different ways. So this first slide, it's sorted by, if you look at the bottom, the showing, you know, the chart, what it is, I forgot the word for it. So the darker green is the initial voltage drop, and the lighter green is the voltage drop after 3 minutes. So I did this two versions, one sorted by the initial voltage drop and the other sorted by the end of 3 minutes. So this is after 3 minutes. So this 343 at the left here to 367 at the right, that's the ending voltage after 3 minutes. So the worst is on the left, the lowest voltage, the best is on the right. Okay, now we go to the next, and you can pause it if you want to look at this in detail. Again, no surprise, the tablets, the Ampace all performed the best. Back 45B, EV40PL. Worst performing was my Samsung 40T that I have in my Suron, which, yeah, kind of a bummer to see. Okay, next slide. This is the same thing, only sorted by initial voltage drop. So if you're interested in how the cells perform with a whole shot and you're going to have 23 amp load, this is super valid information from you. We went from a 388 as the best for the EV40PL, had the best initial voltage drop, and the worst was one of the Lishen LR2170s, 388 to 366. So quite a huge difference in voltage drop. Okay, the next slide here, the next graph in blue is the temp increase for the 23 amp load test. So again, you can see a huge variation. I mean, this is just a shocking difference in temp increase. Of course, the best performance is the left, the lowest. The worst performance is the highest number, the highest temp increase on the right. So again, we're seeing a lowest temp increase from the tablet cells. The 4 Ampace did the best, the best one having only 6.70. And again, I believe the reason why that's even better than the other Ampace, I think that test was run at a bit of a higher temperature, which in general gives a little less temp increase. Then the EV40PLs were a little higher, 8.50, 8.60. EV40PL, where are the back? So those were even higher, 11.6. Then we have the 10 power, the Lishens were 13, 15 degrees, and then to the worst were the 40P N1 and N2, the EV40Ps. And I mentioned that in my Lishen EVE test, that under the same circumstances, between the 2170 Lishens and the EV40Ps, the EVEs were almost always heating up quite a bit more. So here you can see the EVEs were 20 and 21 degrees. And this is, again, only after 3 minutes at 23 amps, not super heavy load, where the Lishens, where were they at? 16, 17, 17, 15, and the EVs were gaining 20 and 21 Celsius. So quite a big difference there. Okay, next graph in 2 shades of blue, 30 amp load test. So again, same thing, not going to spend a lot of time explaining it. You can still frame it. This first graph it's 30 amp test sorted by the voltage at the end of 3 minutes, the voltage drop. So the worst is on the left, the lowest voltage, the best is on the right. And again, the Samsung 40T took the honors as the worst voltage drop out of all the cells. And again, the Ampace JP40 took the honors as the best voltage drop on all the cells. Okay, now if you go to the next slide, it's the same info, just sorted by initial voltage drop. So you can see the difference in initial voltage drop after 5 seconds at 30 amps. So again, the worst on the left here was the Samsung 40T at 353, going all the way over to the best, Ampace JP40 number 2 at 381. So yeah, that's a huge difference, even though the graph doesn't really look like it. I should have probably made the scale more dramatic. But from 381 to 353, you're talking about like a 70% battery level compared to a less than 50, like a 45% battery level. So yeah, huge difference, even though it doesn't look like that much of a difference on the chart. Okay, next graph. This is the temp increase, 3-minute delta temperature for 30 amps. So again, here the best performance is the left, the lowest temperature increase, worst performance on the right. And again, a very big difference in temperature increase over 3 minutes. The tablets did the best, Ampace and EVE, Ampace EVE, 40PL, but the best one by far was Ampace JP40 number 1. And then the worst one, temperature increase at a terrible 30 plus. And remember, this isn't 33 Celsius, this is plus 33 Celsius. So in other words, if we started at 25, you can see the raw numbers on my papers. If we started at 25, then this is ending up at 58 Celsius plus 33 for the Samsung 40T. And where's the 50S? Because in general, that does pretty poorly. There's one 50S plus 29.50. So yeah, they had quite a bit of temp increase also. Okay, next chart, 2 shades of orange. So this is the 35 amp load test. Not going to go over it again in detail, same as before. This first one is sorted by the ending voltage at 3 minutes. So we have a pretty big range of the bottom of 308. Again, Samsung 40T takes the honors on that. And the best one at 344. This again is at the end of 3 minutes at 35 amps. And similar results like on the 30. Now, the next graph here, same information, just sorted by initial voltage drop, and you can again see there's quite a big difference, although in this case, the honors of the worst one goes to one of the Lishen B-grade cells. LR2170 had the worst at 343 voltage drop, and again, this is going in just from a full charge of 420, 5 seconds, you're under load, the whole shot or a drag race start, and it's down to 343, way below 50%, whereas the best performing on the right here was actually one of the EV40PLs at 375, and then Ampace JP40 at 374. So again, tablets kind of are taking the cake. Okay, and then finally on the 35 amp, here's the temperature graph in blue. And again, the best results are the lowest temp increase on the left, worst results on the right, and again, a huge difference. Look at the lowest temp increase we had, Ampace 1730, Ampace EV40PL was 21, so pretty, noticeable difference, even though they're tablets. And then the worst performer on the very right here, one of the 50Ss at 44.9, almost 45 degrees. So what a huge difference that is. At 35 amps, only 3 minutes, the best cell gained 17.3 Celsius, the worst almost 45 Celsius. Just nuts. Okay, now in the 40 amp one here in 3 shades of red, this takes a little additional explanation because you can see here there's 3 different columns. So I'll try to explain it briefly. In general, on the 40 amp cells, I did all the tests to 2 minutes. I mean, all the cells I did 40 amp, I did to 2 minute, but some of them I did to 3 minute, and the ones I did to 3 are the ones I thought could handle it better, like the tablets or the P50B. So here in this results, the dark red, that's the initial voltage drop, the first column on the left. The medium red, which is kind of the middle column there, that is the 2 minute voltage drop. So voltage drop after 2 minutes. And then the kind of pink color, that is voltage drop after 3 minutes on the ones that I did that test for. So this first chart, I organized it, sorted it by the 2 minute voltage drop. So it starts from worst on the left to best on the right for 2 minute voltage drop. So you can see the worst one was one of the Lishen LR2170s, and the best voltage drop at 40 amp for 2 minutes was, one of the Ampaces. And you can see also in the pink how they performed in voltage drop after 3 minutes for the ones that I did for 3 minutes at 40 amps. Now the next chart here, same information, just sorted differently by initial voltage drop. So if you're curious, if you're going to build a pack that's going to have 40 amp load on it, you want to know how much voltage drop you're going to have for your whole shot, you can see a huge variation here from the bottom to the top. The worst, again, was one of the Lishen LR2170s. The best performing was Ampace JP40, and then second place, real close to that, was one of the BK45Ds. Now the next cell in purple here, this is the temp increase at 40 amps. And again, I'm showing it here at 2 minutes and 3 minutes results. So because I did some of them, no, all of them to 2, but some I also did to 3. So it's sorted by the 2 minute temp increase. So again, here the best is on the left. The lowest temp increase, one of the JP40s, had 15.3. And then the worst is on the right here, 50S, almost plus 40 Celsius, which is crazy. And then the lighter purple, this is the ones I ran to 3 minutes. So here's the temperature increase to 3 minutes. So you can see how they did at 40 amps. Okay, almost finished here, 50 amps. So here for the 50 and 60, if you remember on the P50B video, I only tested 4 cells. So here's the results for those 4 cells. This is a voltage drop for the 4 cells. So this is organized by the 2 minute voltage drop. So you can see which performed the worst. There wasn't a huge, no, I should say, actually there was kind of a huge difference. The tablets, the Ampace JP40s did the best. The 40PL did a little worse than that, and the P50B did a little worse than that, than the EV40PL in both initial voltage drop and in the results after 2 minutes. 2 minutes I ran the 50 amp test out to. Next chart in red is the temp increase. So again, you can see tablets perform better. Ampace only having 2470, EV40PL had 26.9. Then P50B and P50B had 36.6, and interestingly, one of the P45Bs, which I tested at 50 amps, only went up less than 1 degree Celsius higher than the P50B. Again, all my tests, like I said before, showing that the P45B, the better way to say it is the P50B is only a very slight incremental improvement in performance over the 45. They have very similar performance. I just wanted to add one real quick thing here at the end. I spent many hundreds of hours doing the battery testing and creating this chart and these graphs in order to provide this as a resource for the community. Nobody pays me for it. In fact, all the equipment, test equipment, all the cells I pay for out of my own pocket. So if you find this work valuable, if it helps you in some way, I encourage you to support my work. I put links in the description of the video here, but you can buy me a coffee, you can support me on Patreon, PayPal. Any support you provide for my work would be greatly appreciated. So again, thanks for watching. Okay, and finally, but hey, I think this is important information, so I'm trying to go over it as quickly as possible, but if somebody else had done this test and showed these results, I would have loved to have seen it. For me, as a battery geek, it's super interesting, so I hope you find it, useful as well and worth your time. So finally, 60 amp, again, same thing, it's sorted by, but in the 60 amp, I only ran them to 1 minute. I did a 30-second result and a 1 minute result because they were just getting too hot. So this is it organized at 1 minute. You can see there, the initial voltage drop. P50B again came in after, worse than the tablets, and then the darker gray is the voltage drop after 1 minute at 60 amps. And finally, red again, here's your temperature increase chart. This is after 1 minute at 60 amps. You can see how they perform. So that's it. If you held on through all these graphs and the explanation, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and more tests and more interesting information is coming real soon. So thank you for watching.